When an American drone is shot down by an Iranian missile, what exactly happens next? It all starts with a radar lock warning for the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. The radar picks up a Predator drone. Seconds later, the signal is relayed to a nearby anti-aircraft missile launcher. The reconnaissance aircraft instantly turns into falling debris in the sky. But in modern warfare, every shot fired leaves a trace. At the same moment that missile was launched, the Iranians also exposed their own radar positions, handing precise coordinates directly to U.S. military command. Within minutes, U.S. strike formations are airborne. This is the fatal weakness of air defense systems. Turning on a radar antenna is like turning on a high-powered flashlight in a pitch-black room. It instantly becomes a beacon guiding the enemy's arrival. And in the U.S. arsenal, there happen to be weapons specifically designed for this situation. As long as the enemy radar is still transmitting, these specialized missiles can follow the electromagnetic waves straight back to the source and wipe it completely off the map. Sunday morning, over the tense Strait of Hormuz, a U.S. MQ-1 Predator drone glides at an altitude of approximately 25,000 feet. It is at the world's most critical maritime choke point, conducting a routine but highly sensitive reconnaissance mission. But on the Iranian coast, early warning radars have already locked onto it. In such high-risk contested airspace, why does the U.S. military send drones instead of manned fighter jets? The hint lies in evading the risk of casualties. The U.S. relies on equipment like the MQ-1 for continuous high-precision intelligence gathering, which avoids risking the lives of pilots. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps IRGC, citing airspace violation, launched a surface-to-air missile and scored a direct hit. This multi-million-dollar piece of U.S. equipment was blown to pieces in a blinding flash. But how exactly did Iranian air defenses track so quickly and destroy a high-altitude U.S. military drone? The answer lies in a sophisticated local air defense network. The IRGC used phased-array early warning radars to detect the drone's specific radar cross-section from miles away and transmitted firing data directly to a local anti-aircraft missile battery. But this inevitably triggers retaliation. The U.S. response was very swift. U.S. Central Command ordered a precisely calculated retaliatory strike. Strike targets were locked onto two strategically significant IRGC strongholds: Keshem Island, a fortified choke point controlling maritime traffic, and Jask, a key coastal staging area for electronic warfare and drone operations. Why would Keshem Island become such a high-priority target in this theater of war? The answer lies in its geographic location. As the largest island in the Persian Gulf, it acts like an unsinkable aircraft carrier, allowing the IRGC at the throat of a global shipping artery to deploy coastal cruise missiles and radar arrays. What were the mission objectives? First, clear the radar network. Acting as the primary assault force were these Super Hornets and F-15 Strike Eagles. These fighter bombers launched AGM-88 HARM anti-radiation missiles. These weapons track the radar's own electromagnetic radiation, screaming down the radar waves to shatter the radar facilities that guided the initial attack. How do U.S. aircraft destroy active radar positions without being shot down themselves? The answer is the use of specialized electronic warfare munitions. The AGM-88 is effectively hunting the invisible radio waves emitted by enemy radar antennas. It can follow these signals at Mach straight to the source. Next, precision-guided jamming munitions hit the communications network. An IRGC ground control station was completely destroyed, instantly severing the data link between Iranian operators and their fleet of drones. On a nearby tarmac, to fully fueled, one-way attack drones prepared to strike merchant ships were blown up before they could even take off. Why target ground control stations instead of hunting the drones directly in the air? This is for tactical efficiency. By cutting the command link at the source, a single kinetic strike can instantly blind and paralyze an entire local drone fleet. Within 48 hours, the U.S. military sent a high-pressure, surgical warning. My colleague will explain in detail how the Navy utilizes these airborne early warning radars. They circle high above the fleet, continuously monitoring the airspace, watching for the direction from which the next attack might come. This is Phase 2. The moment the Iranians launched their attack, U.S. spy satellites traced the exact launch source. Based on the flight trajectory, the military now has a complete grasp of the exact source of the attack. Keshem Island, the closest launch point to the drones and ships. Bandar Abbas, the nerve center of the entire IRGC Navy, and the ports of Khmer and Sirak, coastal positions where the intercepted missiles were just launched. Once the source was confirmed, they initiated the response. Phase 3 of the operation began like this. Multiple stratospheric tankers took off from Al Dhafra Air Base in the UAE. F-18 Super Hornets launched from the USS Abraham Lincoln, where the active vessels deployed in the Strait of Hormuz region during the entire operation. Regarding strike platforms, in the airstrikes on Bandar Abbas and Qeshm Island on May 7th. This was the exact aircraft type involved. Carrier strike group assets deployed to the CENTCOM area of responsibility included the flagship USS Abraham Lincoln's Carrier Air Wing, which carries F-35C Lightning E's and FA-180s, Super Hornets, fighters, cruise missiles, and other aircraft. But were the destroyers really, as reported, just sitting there as bait? The most brilliant part of this bait and counterstrike tactic is that the destroyers are doing two things at once. While their radars lock onto incoming Iranian missiles, their decks are also launching their own Tomahawk cruise missiles. The first target is Qeshm Island. It sits directly across the Strait of Hormuz and is one of the most strategically significant Iranian positions on the waterway. During the exchange of fire between Iranian armed forces and the U.S. military, some commercial facilities within the Qeshm Island bombing zone were hit. This is target 2, Iran's primary naval hub, Bandar Abbas. The city of Bandar Abbas is the center of Iranian naval operations around the Strait of Hormuz. During Operation Epic Fury in February, it had already been hit repeatedly. This is target 3, Amir Port located in Sirak. These are coastal towns in Hormozgan province, on Iran's southern coast, directly overlooking the Strait of Hormuz. They are used as staging grounds for the IRGC Navy and as launch points for fast attack craft, drones, and missiles into the waterway. The U.S. Navy subsequently scrambled these jets to strike Iranian ports. This is target 4, the Hamir Port Naval Checkpoint. This facility is located in Minab, about 80 kilometers east of Bandar Abbas. The IRGC uses it to monitor and intercept passing vessels. This is the Strait of Hormuz. This is an extremely important global choke point. It carries about 20% of the world's daily oil shipments. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps of Iran once threatened that they wouldn't let the enemy get a single drop of oil. But how exactly do they do that, especially when your navy has just lost more than 50 main warships? The answer is simple. For an old-school military, you go back to World War II tactics. That means deploying a fleet of small boats. The Revolutionary Guard Navy no longer relies on large and easily targeted destroyers. Instead, they use swarms of fast, stealthy attack boats. We're talking about small, high-speed fiberglass speedboats, like the Ashura or Ghadir class, or heavily modified bog hammer boats. But how do these speedboats attack U.S. warships? The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Navy operates hundreds of small, fast attack craft. These boats are equipped with heavy machine guns, rockets, and anti-ship missiles. The tactic used here is simple, but incredibly deadly. They won't take on American destroyers one-on-one, because that would be pure suicide. Instead, they'll launch dozens of small boats simultaneously from multiple directions, aiming to overwhelm the U.S. ship's defense systems. For example, by presenting more targets than the system can handle, to overload the CIWS. And not all their gear is military grade, either. They heavily use dual-use civilian and military vessels. To outsiders, these boats just look like regular fishing vessels or commercial trawlers. But in reality, they've been covertly modified to carry out covert military operations. So how do these small boats actually lay medium-sized naval mines? Because they're designed for large-scale mine laying. You won't find any high-tech automated rail systems on these boats. Their method is astonishingly primitive. But in a crowded choke point like the Strait of Hormuz, it's deadly effective. Basically, it's just tossing mines off the stern of the boat. They're simply strapped onto the rear deck of the small boat. Once they've reached the target coordinates, the crew uses manual labor to push these huge explosives right off the back of the boat. Some of the slightly larger vessels might rig up a simple metal chute to help deploy them, but that's about it. This super minimal setup is made for guerrilla warfare. It's a perfect match. The entire tactic relies on speed and stealth. A small speedboat can dart right into a busy shipping lane, hiding under the cover of darkness, or just blending in with civilian vessels. They can drop 2 or 3 mines in a matter of seconds, And before US heavy warships can lock on with radar, they floor it and race back to the safety of the Iranian coast. Now let's look at these weapons. These small boats use Iran's estimated stockpile of roughly 2,000 to 6,000 naval mines. They're dropping not only simple contact mines, the kind that float near the surface and explode on contact, but also advanced bottom mines, the kind that sink to the shallow seabed, lying silently on the ocean floor, and detonate as soon as they detect specific acoustic signatures of passing supertankers. Then they explode instantly. How did the US use preemptive strike capability to destroy those 16 mine-laying boats? This is the first tactic. Rather than waiting for mines to be deployed and then risking high-danger mines sweeping under enemy fire, the US military chose to strike preemptively. They destroyed the boats before they even left port. This is called a preemptive denial operation. Textbook level. Break the enemy's attack capability before they can act. Now the second tactic. Precision strikes enabled by intelligence superiority. This airstrike was no lucky shot. It was entirely based on a highly executable intelligence. Regarding Iran's operational plan, the US fused information from the C-135 signals intelligence, P-8 Poseidon's maritime surveillance, and human intelligence. This allowed them to precisely identify which boats were mine layers and where they were, plus when their guard was most down. That brings us to the third tactic, striking vessels while docked. The vast majority of targets were docked when attacked. Hitting fixed targets at the pier is way easier, safer, and more accurate than hunting moving targets on the open sea. And this basically eliminates the risk of accidentally causing an international incident by hitting targets in such a busy shipping lane. The fourth tactic is the dual target strike doctrine. By hitting both mine-laying ships and mine stockpiles at the same time, this makes sure that even if Iran gets their hands on backup ships, there are no mines left to arm them with. It's a multi-layered strike strategy designed to maximize the strategic effect of coordinated action. The US didn't use just one weapon. They unleashed their entire arsenal onto this Mosquito fleet. They used drones to fire Hellfire missiles, taking out small boats with pinpoint strikes. They also launched long-range cruise missiles from Navy destroyers along the coastline. And to completely eliminate future threats, heavy strategic bombers dropped GPS-guided 900 kilograms bunker busters, hitting not just the ships but their stockpiles as well, wiping out all targets inside the facilities. Here's combat footage released by US Central Command. It shows a Hellfire missile attacking an enemy mine-laying vessel. Zooming in on the still frame, you can confirm it's a Hellfire. This is the go-to payload for the MQ-9 Reaper drone. This boat was just one of the 16 destroyed by these weapons. This highlights a crucial point. Understanding how these small missiles work is key to seeing how a drone can change the game and take out an entire small fleet. Let's check out the internal perspective. Here's how they actually fire those missiles. The operator zooms in on the heat signature with the thumbstick on the controller, locks onto the target, and when ready, presses a trigger button under the joystick. With just a tap, the weapon launches, flying straight for the designated target. The enemy targets that just fired at the MQ-9, as you can see, appear clearly once again on the screen. But how do these small missiles actually track and hit those speedboats? Let's look at the guidance and tracking of the Hellfire missile. The AGM-11 for Hellfire missile is a precision weapon guided by semi-active laser or millimeter wave radar, meaning it can lock onto and track targets with high accuracy. That means it can zero in on moving targets, even fast speedboats on the water. No problem. The MQ-9 Reaper drone uses advanced onboard sensors and targeting pods to keep speedboats under continuous surveillance, constantly sending real-time data after the missile is launched. The drone's precise systems calculate the boat's speed, direction, and maneuvers, allowing the missile guidance to predict its location and adjust course in flight for a precise strike. Combined with the MQ-9 Reaper's real-time tracking, the missile locks on and predicts intercept, destroying a high-speed boat moving up to 110 kilometers per hour. Add up all these successes, and in just 10 days, the US destroyed over 60 warships and submarines. The first target was the Joshan. As this Iranian fast attack craft approached the US surface battle group, it fired an American-made Harpoon missile. This was leftover stock from pre-revolution US arms sales. The US cruiser USS Wainwright used electronic countermeasures and chaff to successfully dodge the attack. The US ship then fired back, sinking the Joshan. This became the world's first missile duel between warships. Next was the Sahand. This Iranian frigate set out to challenge the U.S. fleet and opened fire on passing aircraft. Retribution came immediately. U.S. Navy attack jets and the destroyer USS Joseph Strauss pounded it with missiles and heavy bombs, turning the Sahand into a burning wreck, ultimately blowing up its ammo magazine and sinking it. Later that afternoon, the third warship, the Sabalin, tried its luck too. This frigate fired a surface-to-air missile at a U.S. fighter jet. The pilot easily dodged it, circled around, and dropped a 227 kilograms laser-guided bomb right down the exhaust stack. The internal explosion completely disabled the ship. The ultimate goal behind all these operations was control over the Strait of Hormuz. It's the most critical choke point for global oil shipments.